Hello and welcome to our second session about LUXORliving. Thanks for your interest for attending this session. So in that session I would like to show you, to explain you how to set up, how to configure your LUXORliving environment. And therefore do you need that software LUXORplug, which is available for Windows. In the first step I would like to show you now where you can find the software for the configuration. Therefore, just open a web browser, and yes, you have two possibilities: either go directly to the English web page or go via the German one. And I will choose the German one. That's very easily just luxorliving.de. Type enter, and now you are on the German web page. And just click here on the language, on English, and you are redirected to our English web page, which is luxorliving.co.uk, which you can also directly store in your favorites, and then you can open that web page also directly, no problem. On that web page you find a lot of information about LUXORliving in general, how to install it, what products are available, what are typical use cases, what are news, and many more information. And especially, yes, the software you can find the LUXORplug software for under installers, and choose LUXORplug. Just scroll down and you will find here the download button for LUXORliving. Right now we have the version 1.0.114. If you listen to that recording later on, also there might be then a newer version already available. Don't worry, always use the latest version which is available on that web page. In general, yes, install the 64-bit version. This should fit for all the currently supported operating systems for Windows or of Windows, so that should be fine. And by the way, if you are interested on the system manual, then you find it on the same page as well. In that system manual you find many more information about LUXORliving, how to install it, how to use it, what you can configure, and so on. So there are many more details explained than that what I can explain here in the next 45 minutes. Yeah, download it. It will be stored locally on your PC. Start the executable, and then LUXORplug is available to start. Okay, when you have the software installed, then for sure you also need your physical LUXORliving environment. And therefore I have here a demo case available, which is here next to me, and I will just explain it to you how it's configured and what I will use. So we have here the floor, the ground floor of a building with several rooms, with living room, dining room, kitchen, bedroom, corridor, and so on. And here few blinds, which are, yes, aligned to probably the bedroom, here for the living room, which I can also run here manually directly on the actuator. Yeah, where I have several lights in the building, for example the ceiling light here, or the wall light, or on here, which is a dimming light. Yeah. Or we have here then the heating, which we just show here in that case as a red LED, where you can see, okay, now the heating is on and off. But also with the functions, with the wind, the weather station, and yeah, few more lights which we have installed. Then we have here several buttons which are connected to the B6, to the binary input device, or where we have here a binary push button sensor where we have several also connectors or buttons connected to it here. But as you can see, none of the buttons are right now working, so it's unprogrammed. And after our installation, after our configuration, yes, the buttons should work and I can run then the setup. This demo case, by the way, is also something what we are selling to our customers, so especially for installers or for schools or anybody else, they can also, then buy this demo case, get in contact with our salespeople, and they can give you all the details about costs and a few other things. But it's really perfect, and by the way, that's really excellent. Due to the fact that LUXORliving is also based on KNX, this demo case can also be completely configured and programmed via KNX, so you can also build your KNX training or your KNX experience based on that demo case, and can run also it directly with ETS. But right now we are really using it as a pure LUXORliving environment, and I will show you how to do that. The next step is really that we will start LUXORplug. After the installation of LUXORplug, you will have the icon on your desktop. I have already copied it to my taskbar. I will just click to it. It will open, and you will also see here the latest version or the current version of that installation. Typically after installation, it's installed in German as a default language, but you can very easily just go here to File or Datei in German, open it, go to Settings or Einstellungen in German, and then choose the language here, which we have here in English. But anyhow, we support up to 18 languages in LUXORliving, so you will find the appropriate language which you would like to use. Next step, you have to give your project a name. I will just say that's my smart home. That's my smart home LUXORliving environment. You can also add here a few more information about the owner, about address, installer, a few other notes. These fields are they are optional, they are not required. But you have to give the project a name. That's very easy. Why? Because also that name will be used as a default name as the file name of your project. You can also change it here if needed, but in most cases you will just leave it as it is. Now we are also already in that mode where we can really start to set up your environment. Here you can define how many floors you have in your building, 1, 2, 3, 4 floors. You can also rename the floors and so on. You can then drag and drop your rooms into the floor. That's something what I will do afterwards. So the first step now is that I would like to discover my environment. So therefore I will connect with my case, with my LUXORliving installation, and LUXORplug will automatically detect all the devices which are installed in your environment. Just click here on Load System, and it will establish the connection to your IP1, to the controller of LUXORliving. You have to enter here a password. So per default the password is admin, but you have to change that password when you are configure LUXORliving the first time. So if you do not know that password, you cannot do any modification on your LUXORliving environment. It will say OK. And now it will just start a process where it will detect all the devices. You can see now one device after each other will be detected. So first it was the weather station, then the heating, then now a switching actuator, dimming actuator. Yeah, you can see it. That's the blind actuator. So one after each other, you will find it, or the software will detect and find the software. So it will scan the environment that long for all the devices which are either new, which are in a factory mode, or which are already have an address from the LUXORliving address range. That will be done automatically. So now it will really scan for a few more devices. That takes, yes, few seconds. Don't worry, that's how it is. But during that step, the devices will already get here a physical address, which will be assigned. So you do not need to assign the addresses manually. So that's something what LUXORliving will do for you. And when that process has really been completed, then after a while, LUXORliving will then show you the full device list of your environment. Yeah, that scan still takes a few seconds, but that's absolutely normal. It's anyhow much faster than running through your whole installation and try to find and yes, associate the devices in your environment. The next step after that scan, after that discovery has been completed, and that's a really very, very important step. So now you can see, by the way, also 9 devices has been found. That's exactly perfect because I also have 9 devices in my case. And the next step, what I just wanted to mention is now really I have to name the devices. So in my demo case, I just have all of the devices are from a different type, so it would be easy to identify it. But typically in a real building, in a real installation, you have multiple devices of the same type, and that's what you have to identify. And this is a very important step that you really take now the time to identify the right devices. And I would like to show you how that could be done. So there are different possibilities. You can start it from here. So for example, when I click here on the switching actuator, for example here on that magnifier, then it will be highlighted. And in the system itself, probably it's difficult for you to see here, now this LED at that actuator is blinking. And now you know, okay, this device is exactly the device which I have marked. And so I will start to name that actuator. So for example, I will just say it's in the main distribution board and it's the module number 1. Moment. Okay, I will just say 1. And then also what I would recommend is, yes, just also put in the name the type of the device. So I will say that's a S8. That's 8-volt switching actuator. Done. Then I have another possibility. For example, I will now click on the device in the demo case. So I will walk over. For example, here, that's my dimming actuator. And now I press here that programming button. It will, now the right light is on. And you can see here also this magnifier is now highlighted. Now I can identify, okay, that's exactly that device. And I will say that, for example, also in the distribution boards, it's the device number 2, and so it's device D2, dimming actuator 2-volt. And that's something what I will do now step by step. I will switch off the programming button again, and I will do it step by step. For example, that's the distribution board number 3, and that's the J4. That's the heating actuator, DB number 4, H6. The weather station, you can have only one weather station in your environment, so you do not really document where it's installed, and also not what type of weather station it is, but yeah, I will do it anyhow. Then I have here a binary input. That's also a DIN rail component, DIN rail actuator, that's D5, and I will say B6. Okay, and now we have here a few more things which are not DIN rail components. That's a push button interface named T8. So it's a device like this one, which you have here. So it's for LUXORliving. It's available in a 2-volt, 4-volt, and 8-volt model available, and you can just use, or you can use it, yes, to connect it to any buttons, independent which one you would choose. So you can really, yeah, the owner of the building, you really can choose the type of model of the buttons, and then you just connect these to your push button interface. So it's installed then in here. Typically, installer has done his job. It's completely installed, and now you can't see here really, yeah, neither the LED nor you can press the programming button. So how can you identify this device here? And the easiest way for push button interfaces, I will just stop here the editing mode. I will just click here on the push button, for example, and these 4 buttons are connected to that device here. I will just press 3 times the button, and afterwards, yeah, as you can see here, it's highlighted. Now it's independent which channel you are using on the push button interface. You can use all or one of the 8 or 4 or 2 channels. And now that magnifier is also highlighted. Now you can really see, okay, that's really my push button interface, and now you document it where it's installed. So for example, it's installed in the living room. Living room at the kitchen door. It's always important that you really document where you can find that device, and it's a T8. Yeah. Okay, and when I'm just clicking again the push button, also the magnifier is off. That's very easy, and now we have 2 more push buttons, or 2 more yes devices. That's our EON 8 and EON 4. One is with the display. That's the EON 8 with up to 10 functions, and the EON 4 you can find here in the demo case, which is this one here. And also we will do the naming of these devices. For example, the EON 8 is also in the living room. here you have just installed one, so you do not have to document where it is installed. Here an 8, and also this one here. You can also just mark it with the magnifier, and then it will blink or highlight when it's in the programming mode. And that's, for example, in the bedroom room with a iron 4. Yeah. I have now used quite some time to do that, yes, naming of the device. Believe me, if you are really do it really carefully and very consequently, then this will help you to avoid any troubles when you do the assignment of functions and channels and so on. So this is an important step, and for me it's really very helpful to do it in that exact way. So next step is really, I will click on the continue button. Now I will start again in the rooms. Now I'm back in that level where I have the setup for the rooms. Yeah, and I will click to plus. I have, for example, just one floor. So now it's reduced to one floor. You can also rename the floor, as you can see here. And now the next step is just to choose the rooms which are available in that floor into the panel. Kitchen, then we have a lavatory, a corridor, and for example also a garage. And for sure also the corridor we have already. I think that's all what I need right now. And if you want to configure or create a new room which is not available as a template, then just go here in the editing mode, click on the icon, then you have a list of icons. For example, yes, it's not a garage, it's a garden. I will say okay. And I can also say here, not garage, it's the garden. And so you have created your own icon. Yeah, and you can do that step by step, floor by floor, how you really would like to configure or set it up. So the next step is really that we are configuring functions. So let me start with the living room. In the living room, let me just jump back to my panel. In the living room, which is this here, I do have several functions. I do have here one blind, which is assigned to the living room. I have one dimming lamp. I have a ceiling lamp. I have a heating. And probably I also have here a switch, which is for a door contact, where I can see the status of the door. That would be what I would like to configure in the next few minutes, assigned to the dining room, to the living room, sorry. The first thing is that I have a switching command, and you just have here on the left side all the functions which are available. So switching, dimming, blinds, heating, scenarios, and status. You just drag and drop it from the left in that field here. And on the right side, you can see here an overview of all the actuators and sensor channels. If I just unmark the switching function, then you can get an overview of all the actuators. When I highlight the switching actuator, then just switching actuator channels will be shown. So the light of that that's the ceiling light, that's the channel 7 on the S8. I will just drag and drop here to the switching actuator, and I will give it a name. That's in the living room. That's the ceiling light. I will say, okay, it's a normal switching application. You can also do basement or light or staircase light and so on. But I will not explain all these things right now because it just will take a little bit too long. And I will assign a trigger. And as a trigger, again, let me just show. I will say that I will have here on that button central off, panic, then the switching in the living room, the dimming in the living room, the blinds in the living room. That's how I would like to set up here these buttons. And so I have to choose this one. I will just drag and drop the name here as well. So typically, I will just reuse the name of the function, the trigger. I will just copy and paste the actuator name to the trigger function. Okay, say okay. And in that case, I also will drag and drop will assign the central functions, central off and panic right now. And that's C1 is central off. I will just say okay. And C2 is panic. Okay, so the first switching channel is programmed. The next one is the dimming. And as you can see now, I have chosen dimming function, and only dimming actuators are assigned here. That's, for example, then channel 1. I will also give it a name. It's in the living room, and that's, for example, the wall light. I can choose here what is the load, the typical load. In doubt, also always leave it as auto in the auto detection mode. If you know, okay, it's inductive ballast here or an inductive device here, then you can also choose inductive. Also for LED, RC load is appropriate, is fine. ECL is for energy saving lamps, but they are not often used any longer. So yeah, if you are in doubt, just leave it on auto. Dimming time, that's the time which you need to dim from 0 to 100%. 4 or 6, 7 is a good appropriate time. Dimming, minimum dimming level, this really depends on your lamp. Few lamps, they're really perfect. You can dim it up, down to 1%. Few others you can just use it starting with 3 or 5%. Yeah, I would say start with 3%. That's in most of the cases, that's fine. And you can choose what is the switch on value when it's off. And typically, yes, the same value as you have used before you switch it off. That's what we recommend, but you can also just do here a standard 100% or all the time when you really switch it on. We will leave it. Also here a trigger, as I've already mentioned, that's C4. I will also drag and drop the name to it. It's already in the group of central off and panic, so it will react on these commands. If it should not react on panic, so for example it's in a child's room, then you just have to remove that mark and then it will not react on panic. Blinds. So we have here the blinds in the living room. That's the channel 2. Also drag and drop. I say just blinds, living room. So if you have multiple blinds via east, via south or west or to the terrace or whatever, just name it appropriately. You have to define what type of application it is, if it's blinds, if roller blinds, awnings or whatever. Yes, choose that. You have to define the runtime. So in my case, it's 10 seconds for these electronic blinds. I will just do a correction for the uptime because the electronic blinds are a little bit different to the standard, to the normal blinds. That's the reason why I have here an adjustment. And the time to turn around is about, in my case, 7 seconds. So typically with real blinds, it's definitely higher. And it should participate on wind alarms, and it should participate on threshold 1. So we have not defined the thresholds already. We will do it afterwards when I have done the configuration of that room. So I can also choose here if it should participate on frost or on rain or whatever. And the question is, what should be the behavior after a wind alarm, frost alarm, or rain will be released? So what we recommend is really choose here update, height, and lamella. That's probably the best choose what you can do, but you can also say just don't do anything or leave it as it is or whatever. That's up to you. Please also discuss that with your customer. Say okay. So which push buttons we would like to use, as I mentioned already, here we have C5, C6. So you always need 2 buttons to operate blinds. So you need one for up and one for down. And also we give it a name. That's a living room. The left one, the C5, is the up. Then blinds up. And the second one is down. So these channels always must be directly next to each other. Okay, you can only use 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6 together. You cannot use 1 and 3 or 2 and 5. So always the next following number must be used, must be free, must be available, starting with the 1, 3 or 5 number 1, 3 or 5. Okay, now we have defined the trigger for the blinds, and we can also choose if it should run, participate in the panic group. It's marked, yes, and or if I want to remove it, just remove that cross. Okay, so also what you can see here, if these blinds also should run on the sun protection mode, on front, right, left, and so on, you can also just mark it in here, however it should work. And or if it should run also attend twilight, so in the morning, evening, dawn and dusk, you can mark it here as well. The thresholds will be defined in the weather station for these functions. Next one is heating. So for heating, we will use here channel 1. That's living room heating, and yeah, I think that's all what you need. You can choose here if it's heating or cooling. But yeah, if it's cooling again, if it's heating and cooling, then you also have here an additional field where you can see, okay, or where you have, which you will connect with your heating and cooling device, which will tell LUXORliving is it in a heating or cooling mode. But right now we have just heating, then I will switch again to heating, then it will disappear again. You can define what is it, if it's a radiator or underfloor heating, just different parameters. Set point, minimum and maximum set point. At the initial configuration, just leave it as it is, and probably later on you can then also adapt these set points to values which are really which you should want to use in that environment. So, okay, we have to use a sensor, and yeah, here, for example, in the EON, you can have a temperature sensor, or you can have such kind of a temperature sensor as well, and connect this sensor then to a push button interface very easily, or connect it, as I have done it here, to flush mounted device, very flexible, and then it will just provide you here the current temperature of the room, or if you use the EON, you can define the set temperature also with the EON directly. So as we have the EON 8 in my living room, I will use the room sensor from the living room here as well. Just drag and drop it. And you can define here an offset if needed. Good. Then we have scenarios. That's something what I have not mentioned right now. So living room scenario 1. Scenario, here we just define, I will say, a dynamic configurable push button, which you can, yes, configure later on without any LUXORplug again. We will just call a scene then in LUXORplay, or directly when pressing the button, and you can define what kind of function is behind it. Here you just define which button should drive the scenario 1. I will say OK, and I will assign the trigger to it. And for example, in our case, it's from the T8, the C1 trigger. So this is this one. So I will say it's probably not scenario, it's scene. Probably scene. Say here scene, here as well. Probably that's better. Okay, and I will add a second scene as well. Just use scene number 2. I will use that trigger here. So these scenario triggers or scene triggers we will assign later on in LUXORplay. Last one is the status. As I mentioned here, for example, the terrace door status. It's on and off status, or you can also, for example, show for the as a status also values like temperature or so on, if you want to do that. So we will say OK, and the trigger in my case, it's from the T8 channel 4, and that's the door contact. Done. Now I have fully configured the living room. I will go back to my overview. Now please don't forget here at that point of time to configure the weather station. As I have mentioned, you have here two different thresholds, threshold 1, threshold 2. If you have different blinds, like an awning and roller blinds or pure blinds, which just have different wind alarm thresholds. So threshold 1, for example, it's with 4 meters. Threshold 2, for example, 10 meters. And then you have the switch off delay time, after which will the delay time which the weather station will wait after the last time when the wind strengths have exceeded the threshold. And if it 10 minutes or even longer not have exceeded again, then the wind alarm will be reset. So in our case, we will just say to 10 seconds because otherwise it's blocked too long for demo purposes. And then we can also define your frost, twilight, and other sensors. By the way, also here are the 3 sensors you have in the weather station, with south, west, with front, right, and left, and the maximum value. And here the thresholds for the sun protection, also for each sensor. You can define it dependent on your situation. I will say OK. Next step is just the programming of the system. So I can also, then do the other rooms right now, but that just would cost us too much time. So I think I have implemented all the different functions now within that one room, and I can start do the programming. Therefore, I go to System, Program, do a Start. Now it will configure all the devices. All the functions will be loaded to the devices. So due to the fact that this is the first time that we are now set up that environment, all the actuators must be fully configured and programmed, and that's also, it just takes a while. For those of you who are familiar with KNX, you know this first step is just takes a little bit longer. If you add later on additional functions, or if you modify any parameters, then just the delta will be programmed. So this is very easy and then very fast. You just have to wait here for the during the first installation for a while until this step has been really completed. Also, what you can see, and that's very hopefully we can see that also here in the picture. Yeah, I think it's. Please ensure, if you wonder, okay, does it work or not, or if you have any problems during the load, this data LED on the power supply must now blink. If it blinks blue, then it's perfect. You can see, okay, the really values or the data will now be sent to all the devices. They will be configured, and it is working now. So, but as you can see, it really takes a while until really the programming is done. Right now we are at 34%. We have to wait for it. Okay, I will give you some more information about the system in between. So if you have here the Eon, moment, just let me show it. Yeah. So Ion is a really excellent device. Right now it's not connected to the device, where you have here the functions which you can go left, right, and left. You can have all kinds of functions, switching, dimming, blinds, and so on your device. And also the temperature, you can set it up in here. Yeah, another information, in case that you have the problem that one device is not working properly. You can always reset devices very easily just by this. I will probably just do it here with another actuator. For example, here I have a switching actuator 16 volt. If you disconnect the device from the bus, press the programming button, and then with the bus cable, then connect it again connect the bus cable again to the device, put it in here, and then after a while release the programming button. Now it will blink 2 times very shortly, and then the device is reset to the factory modus, so at least all the group addresses and the physical address has been reset, and you can discover the device from scratch. Then also what we have right now for LUXORliving, that's something what I do not have shown in the demo case right now. We have here the solution for the RF devices, where we have here the media coupler, which will convert the TP signal from the TP signal to the RF signal, and we have here for all different functions, so heating, blinds, dimming, switching, whatever, binary input, also these RF devices, which you can also use in case that you have no bus available in your environment. And then you can just install the media coupler and an RF device. You just need then the mains, and you can use then wherever you need a switching function in your environment. So now is the time. Also, you can see the programming has been completed. It's done without any problems. And now let's verify on the system if it is properly working. Therefore, I will again go to my system, and I will start with the switching function. Switching function, that should be that ceiling light, which is working. Then I have here the dimming light, where I can dim up and down. Switch on. Then I have here the blinds. I can run here the blinds down. Stop it, run it up. Stop it. And I can also just do here a wind alarm. Then the blinds are going up. When the wind alarm is over, then also the blinds will run down again. So I will just reset it, because right now I have here set it to 10 seconds, and the wind alarm also will be released after 10 seconds again. Okay, what else I do have here now? Okay, you can see, okay, the blinds went down again. The scene button I cannot show right now, because therefore I really need here the scenes and Luxor play. About the temperature right now, we have an actual temperature about 25 degrees. The set temperature is 21 degrees, so I have to push it up to probably 26 degrees. And now, after a while, the red lamp should switch on. So also this one is working. So that's perfect. Now I will also show you the central functions. For example, I will switch on the lights and do a central off. This is working. And when I'm doing a panic, that means blinds up and all lights on, also working. And now when panic is activated, I cannot move or run blinds or switch lights as long as panic is activated. First I have to deactivate the panic, and then I can again just run the blinds, switch off the lights. Okay, so these are now all the steps which are required during the setup. You just have to copy and do that for all the other functions in your environment. But I have explained more or less all these steps. Yeah, and just as a look forward, the next step is the visualization. So normally the programming of the visualization took a lot of time. So here in LUXORliving, we just click on Prepare LUXORplay, do a start, and it will create automatically based on all that information you have entered during that setup process in the software. It will create the visualization, and you can immediately run the system afterwards. That's perfect. I will show you the next steps in LUXORplay then in our third session. So I just would like to say thank you for your time. As you can see, the transmission of the project and the visualization has been completed. So thanks a lot for your time. Thanks for your interest, and let's see you later in the third part of the tutorial. Thanks. Bye.